Hello friends, today I'm going to talk about Ukraine crisis. The Ukraine, it is going to be, if it is not prevented properly, the crisis will escalate and it will well develop into another 30 years war in Europe. The famous 30 Years' War from 1618 to 1648 devastated the Holy Roman Empire and much of the territory which is today German, Czechoslovak, Netherlands, and much part of East Europe. Why I'm drawing a parallel between the current Ukraine crisis to the 30 Years' War? Because when I look at the development of events, they have lots of similarity. Number one is the ideological part versus the religious part. Back in the 16th, 18th, 17th century, there's a divide in the Western Christendom, Catholics versus the Reformation versus the Protestant states. And in today's world, in the Ukraine, there's a big conflict in terms of the ideology, so-called Western democracy versus the authoritarianism. So this is the one part, and the second part is similar to the 30 Years' War. Almost the entire European states were drawn into the conflict. And now the situation in Ukraine, if it developed into a full-fledged war, the NATO, which currently compromises the whole Western Europe plus most of the Eastern Europe states, will be involved. On the other side, Russia will be involved as well. Russia is the former superpower. Although its prestige and power has diminished after the collapse of Soviet Union, but still the Russian, in terms of its military prowess, is still unbelievable, especially its nuclear arsenal. So it's not going to be a world war, but why I'm saying it's not a world war? Because the United States will not be involved. Yes, it will not be involved. It stoked fire in the Ukraine. It purposely spread false propaganda against Russian state, against Putin, and it purposely escalated tensions in the eastern front of Ukraine. The United States do this with some reasons. I speculate there were two reasons behind it. Number one is the United States is very far away from the Eastern Europe, from Ukraine. If the war breaks out, they have the option to stand by and watch, only intervene when both sides extorted each other. Then they will come in, just like what happened in World War II and World War I. They will come in at a later stage to react the fruit of this conflict of this war. So that's why I should say the people in Europe, the smart leaders in Europe or European people, they should try their very best to avoid this particular war. The trend when I look at it is that the Anglo-Saxon side, the United States and Britain, are doing their very best to provoke the tensions between both sides in the hope that this will escalate into a full-fledged war. It will serve to their benefits. Reason number one, I have already explained, and the second reason why the United States is behind this and it is trying to inflict a war in Europe is because of the dollar dominancy is diminishing. There is news that Russia and China has agreed in a long-term natural gas contract, and this contract, the amount is huge. The important part of this contract is this contract is going to be based on Euro dollar instead of US dollar. It is another strategic push from China and Russia to debase US dollar from the global trading system. From the 1960 onwards, US dollar has been the dominant trading currency in the world war trade settlement. And this gives tremendous benefits to the United States in the sense that United States is able to so-called outsource its inflation pressure from domestic market to the whole world with the help of circulation of US dollars. And it also gave United States tremendous benefits in almost unrestricted funding towards its military spending. Why? It can borrow at wish. The Federal Reserve, there's a complicated money issuing system in the United States, but in essence, Federal Reserve can manipulate the market and the US is able to borrow as much as it wanted, so long as they do it carefully to mask the reality from the general public via this sophisticated money lending system, especially the Federal Reserve. So US is able to borrow as much as possible, and it is able to invest as much as possible into the technology, into their especially military related spendings. This will give United States an edge over other nations. So it can impose its will to other nations, militarily to the small and medium states, financially to the bigger states like Russia, China, and Iran. And now, I would say this US dollar dominancy in the global market is the cornerstone of the United States, the superpower. And this is why other countries, including European Union, is slowly but steadily trying to push the US dollar from this prestige position, inch by inch. And the recent development of this natural gas contract settlement in Euro dollar is another effort, is a joint effort by Russia and China it is also an important political effort. This will bring some benefits to the European Union because the euro dollar is the second dominant currency, followed by the US. Although the second position and the first position in terms of the percentage in the market is quite huge. So why, coming back to this issue, why the United States, out of everything they want war in the Ukraine? It's because this will destabilize the Eastern Europe as a whole. Just like the 30 Years' War, almost all the European countries, indirectly or directly, will be involved into this particular war. And the safety, stability of the region is going to be implicated. And this will affect the credibility of euro dollar, which is already weakened by the immigrant crisis from Middle East. If you look at the GDP and the economic data of those European Union countries, if you compare it from to the ones in 1990s when euro dollar was first launched, the situation is not good. Most of the European Union countries experienced depression, economic slower down to a certain degree as comparing to the ones in 1990s. And back in 1990s, I want to draw another example. When the euro dollar is first launched, it is threatening the position of US dollar just as is today. And guess what happened? And we all know there's a Kosovo war. It breaks apart Yugoslavia, and it also this long duration war effectively halted the momentum of euro dollar from becoming the dominant currency in the world trading market. And today, United States is trying to do it again to stop the trend, to stop the momentum of euro dollar, because it knows that China and Russia will do their very best to tip over US dollar domination. I think this is the major reason, the true reason that why we see the conflicts in Ukraine cannot be resolved at any time soon. It only escalates even when Russian Confederation withdrawn parts of its army from the border. So instead of stabilize the situation, the Ukraine government chose to escalate the tension. There's some artillery attack to the Donbass area recently. And why they choose to do that? They claim that Ukraine is in a defending position to defend the possible future Russian invasion to Ukraine. And when Russia withdraw its troops, the Ukraine government chose to escalate the attention. Why? We have to ask this question. And we have to ask how true it is that statement that Ukraine is only trying to defend itself. No. Ukraine is not able to exercise its own strategic move in this crisis, this is the saddest part. In fact, Ukraine has become a vassal state of the United States. In effect, Biden is the overlord of Zelensky, the Ukraine president. People with, if you look at news, if you watch carefully, you will not fail to understand that. Currently, the people in the Ukraine government, they are not working for the benefit of Ukraine people. They are working for the United States. They are working for the Biden administration. They take orders from Biden, just like those Eastern European states took order from Moscow in the time of Cold War. There's no denying of that. And from that we can understand why the situation in Ukraine is not going to resolve by itself. Sadly, the people involved has no say in the development of this crisis. And that is why I think the European leaders, the French president, German chancellor, they should do their very best to prevent this current Ukraine crisis from becoming another 30 years war.